My privilege to be able to provide you with the first Oklahoma City Streetcar operations update. As you can guess, the last month and a half has been really busy for us in public transportation and parking, with the launch of the Streetcar on December 14th, managing that service through the holiday period, and then, as mentioned, Sunday bus service beginning this last Sunday, January 27th. So we're very optimistic about both services moving forward. And since the Streetcar is the topic this morning, I'll keep my comments there, but look forward to hopefully bringing back a full report on Sunday bus service to council in the future. So, December 14th, and many have spoke about the significance of that day. I think we'd all agree that it was transformative for our city in terms of launching Oklahoma City Streetcar and bringing that forward to the residents. I think it's worth mentioning, at least one more time that, the launch of the Oklahoma City Streetcar is really just another example of the city's ability and the city's commitment to deliver on MAPS 3 projects. And there's a lot of people, of course, that made that happen. We'd like to take a minute to recognize just a few of those publicly. Obviously, we had a lot of volunteers that helped us out, a lot of community support in that area. We had downtown businesses. We couldn't have done it without their support. Stakeholders such as the Downtown OKC Partnership, the vision of the council and other city leaders to bring this brand new mode of transportation accessible by all to Oklahoma City. And then, of course, our sponsors, Brookville and Herzog, they really helped make that opening day special. So with that, rather than continuing to try and describe opening day, and I know all of you were there and took in the event, we have a video here that you may have seen, but I think you'll agree it's definitely worth seeing again, that the Oklahoman put together that really kind of captures that opening day for streetcar operations. There you go. Neat video. I like to watch that.
Shout out to Dave Morris for that video.
It's very good. So, speaking of our opening weekend, again, thanks to many within our community to make the effort a success. We had over 250 volunteers that helped us out with that event. I'm sure you all recognize or you remember seeing all of the volunteers in the orange vest working on the platforms, working on the streetcar vehicles themselves, really just trying to be ambassadors, answer questions, and help our customers have the best possible experience they could as we open service. Through the opening weekend, December 14th through the 16th, we provided over 20,104 rides over that 3-day period. So we were just really pleased with the ridership that we saw that opening weekend and that we continue to see on a daily basis since then. Just to give you a sense of how that ridership is divided, on Friday, December the 14th, our first day of operations. Keep in mind, we didn't really start service until after the ceremony, about the noon time. We had 5,600 trips that we provided. On Saturday, over 10,200, and then on Sunday, almost 4,300 trips. So, again, a very successful opening weekend. Also, we provided 41 hours of service that weekend. Again, Friday, we kept our normal schedule on Saturday till 2 a.m., and then we provided the 11 to 7 service, on Sunday. So here's another look at our ridership, again, to give you kind of a sense of how many trips we've provided through really about 6 weeks of operations. The numbers that you see here, total riders to date of 119,628. That is through January the 27th. So again, I'm not sure, any of us knew exactly what to expect in terms of ridership, but after 6 weeks, over 100,000 trips, particularly launching a brand new service in the middle of the winter, the coldest months and typically the lowest months for transit ridership, we're again exceptionally pleased by what we've seen. So just a quick rundown of the graph here. You can see that the blue line actually represents cumulative totals for our weekday ridership. The green line there are cumulative totals for the Saturday ridership, and then the black line is our Sunday ridership. So you can see just by looking at the data there that our Sunday ridership really is our second best performing day behind Saturday. The other thing I might mention about our ridership here is if you look at the graph, you might notice a downward trend, but I would caution to use the word trend. This is nothing that we didn't expect. I mean, obviously when you launch a new service, people try it for the first time, particularly during the holiday season when people had flexibility in their schedules and had opportunities to come downtown, enjoy the streetcar, enjoy downtown in December. It's really not a surprise that we had a lot of ridership at the launch of the system. In fact, we actually tested the limitations of ridership capacity really during our first weekend of service. So what we've really seen is starting with kind of week 4, week 5, and week 6 there is kind of what we would describe from the operations standpoint of kind of trying to find what's our normal, what's our baseline, what's our ridership going to look like moving forward. And I think that's what you see in weeks 4, 5, and 6. And even so, you can see that throughout the week we're averaging 5,000 to 6,000 trips. On Saturdays, we're doing anywhere from, we have a 1,400 trip Saturday up to almost a 4,300 trip Saturday. And then again, even looking at Sunday, anywhere from 1,000 trips up to this last Sunday, where we had over 2,700 trips. And again, a lot of this is dependent on the weather, as you could imagine. So looking at Sunday in a little bit more detail, because I know there's been a lot of interest in Sunday Oklahoma City streetcar service, this gives you a breakdown of each of the Sundays we provided the limited 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. service. And if you took those numbers and you averaged them, you would see that we're averaging 2,651 trips on Sundays for Oklahoma City Streetcar. And again, that is a limited service of just 8 hours during Sunday. Another way to look at that is riders per service hour. So that's 63 riders per service hour. And of course, the way we look at service hours is, for example, if we have 2 streetcars out for 1 hour, that's 2 service hours. So that's how we look at the service hours. So with that, obviously we would say that the pilot program of looking at offering Sunday service through the first 7 Sundays, again, much like our opening weekend ridership, we would say our Sunday ridership has also been very well received and certainly successful in our minds of an operator. So with that, and at the mayor's suggestion, we have actually developed, as we're developing our FY20 budget, we've developed a budget request to add full-time Sunday service to next year's budget. So that would allow us to continue to provide service on Sunday every week, not just the 11 to 7 limited service that we've been offering, but basically a 15-hour service span of 7 a.m. to about 10 p.m. on Sundays. In order to continue Sunday service relatively uninterrupted, what we're actually proposing for this year, the remainder of fiscal year 19, is to go ahead and what I'm recommending to the COTPA board is that we amend our operating budget by $82,129 funded through sponsorship revenue that comes from Streetcar platform sponsorships, and basically be able to provide Sunday service for the remainder of this fiscal year, leveraging that sponsorship revenue as kind of a one-time deal to fund Sunday Streetcar through the rest of this fiscal year. So if council supports that and the COPPA board approves, the way we would recommend moving forward with the Sunday service is on February the 3rd, this upcoming Sunday, we would take a temporary break from offering Sunday service for a couple of reasons. One is that's really at the request of our operator. It gives them an opportunity to let their entire staff have a day off. They have not stopped service since beginning on December 14th. Allows them to take another look at the schedules in preparation of full-time Sunday service. And then the other thing it allows us to do is, and I'm going to speak a little bit more about our traffic signal priority and what Eric had mentioned in terms of being able to install some prioritization on signals. It will allow us on that Sunday to be able to test and fine-tune kind of that first wave of traffic signal priority along the downtown loop. So with that, we would temporarily suspend, not have Sunday service on February 3rd. Then the following Sunday, February 10th, we would continue our 11 to 7 service for 8 weeks. That would allow Herzog Transit, our contractor, time to hire and train additional operators in preparation of the full-time Sunday service I described earlier. So that is really the way we're looking at Sunday. That is our plan moving forward. And again, we will be bringing a budget amendment to the COPPA board this Friday for consideration.
And Jason, your Sunday numbers are like twice your Monday through Friday numbers. I mean, on any given Monday through Friday, you have half the number of riders that you do on Sunday. Is that fair?
Actually, on our weekday average is just over 2,000. So 2,083 rides is what we're averaging on our weekday.
Can you go back one slide?
Yeah, let's go back.
Okay. Well, you're averaging, but I mean, let's throw out the first 3 weeks because it's a new thing. So you got some equilibrium here in the last week 4 to 6. And you got 5,000 to 6,000 from Monday through Friday cumulative?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
right.
And that's also total riders, so it's a different number of hours in the day as well, right?
Well, that's our, so this graph will show really just the total ridership, but I do understand, I think I'm getting Councilman Shadid's point in that if you just look like at the last 3 weeks where we've kind of stabilized or normalized our ridership, then yes, our Sunday is outperforming generally any given day of the week, if that's...
Well, except Saturday.
Well, I'm sorry, except Saturday. I meant, yeah, weekday.
It's the second best day of the week,
Second
and it's
best
doing
day.
it with fewer hours of service.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So, I mean, again, driving the point home, we're going to have Sunday streetcar service starting February 10th for the rest of this fiscal year, and then pending council approval of the budget next year into the next fiscal year and beyond. I guess we can't promise anything beyond the next fiscal year. We may not even, can't even promise police department beyond 2021, but
I can promise.
But this is now the intent, is to move forward with Sunday service, which clearly acknowledges the excellent ridership we've had.
Yep.
Do we have any guesses on what kind of drop that will occur whenever it becomes not free?
No, we don't. And I really kind of hate to speculate. All I can say is that, and we all know this intuitively, anytime something goes from being free to having to pay, even if it's a nominal charge of $1 per trip or hour of service, that is going to affect some people's decisions on whether or not to use the streetcar. We're optimistic that we'll be able to hold ridership to the levels that we see now. I think what we're going to see is, even with a fare, once we roll around to springtime, warmer weather, we're going to be exceeding the ridership that we currently have. But undoubtedly, the fares are going to impact.
Right.
Okay, so let's see. So what I would say is, even with all the positives that we've had through the first 6 weeks of service, We are as an operator still navigating some challenges. We are mindful of making efforts to continually improve our system, not only just in the intermediate term, but that's something as a transit operator we do indefinitely, right? As we continue to look at our service, try to improve it. And one of the things that we're really focused on with Oklahoma City Streetcar right now is our route times. And so we describe a route time as basically the total amount of time that it takes us to make one loop on the downtown loop. And so we've got a table up here that will give you an idea of kind of what our target route time is versus our actual route time. So when we were in design, working with consultants, even driving the route in our vehicles and trying to simulate streetcar service, our target was anywhere from 40 to 48 minutes to make a total trip around the loop. So what that led to is during our peak frequency, when we had 4 streetcars out, during our peak time, when we have 4 streetcars out, we're expecting 10 to 12 minute frequency. During our off-peak, when we had 3 vehicles out, 14 to 16 minutes. So if you look over on the right-hand side of the table, obviously you can see that our actual total loop time is averaging 52 minutes. That means our peak frequency is 13 and our off-peak is 17. So we're not, at this point in time, meeting those targets. And ideally, as an operator, we would want to, when you look at that target of, say, 40 to 48 minutes, we really want to get as close as we possibly can to the 40, and as close as we possibly can to the 10-minute frequency and the 14-minute frequency. And the reason for that is, and I'll share this with you, and the MAPS Streetcar Subcommittee has pointed this out as well, that there are so many uncontrollables with running the streetcar service in terms of just sharing the street with vehicles, with pedestrians, with cyclists, traffic signals. There's so many uncontrollables that it does impact our route time. So again, working to try to minimize that route time, one of the things we're focused on now is traffic signal priority. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how traffic signal priority works, what our plan is moving forward on that. So this is a graphic that a vendor, Opticom, shared with us, and I know the text is a little bit small, but I'll generally describe how it works. But essentially the way traffic signal priority works is there's equipment mounted on the vehicles. In this case, we have pictures of buses, but it works the same for streetcars. There's also equipment that is attached to the signal light and the signal controller, and then you have the back-end software. And so what you do is you basically go in and set up, using GPS coordinates or geofencing, however you want to describe it, an area on the street or the route so that when the hardware senses the vehicle approaching a signal, it goes ahead and sends a command to that signal to either, one, extend the green, if it's already a green light, to let the transit vehicle, in this case we're talking about streetcars, go ahead and pass through the intersection without stopping. Or if the signal is red, when it senses the approaching vehicle, it will go ahead and shorten that signal with the idea to go ahead and turn it green by the time the streetcar or the bus gets there. So that's essentially how it works. I think an important thing to mention, though, is that the technology that we're looking at doing and that Public Works is installing requires no input from the operator, right? It's all automated, it's GPS technology, there's software that sends those commands to the signals. So that's what we're working on in terms of signal prioritization. And we as staff have went through and we've identified on our route map here each of the signals that we believe could benefit from traffic signal priority. And the way we're approaching the traffic signal priority is to phase it in incrementally, and we're beginning with 5 prioritized signals that are being installed now. Again, that technology will be up and running and being tested on February the 3rd. And so just to point out a couple of things on this route map, what you'll see is that the blue dots on the map are 5 intersections where we already have the Opticom traffic signal priority solution. You'll notice 4 of those are in Bricktown, and they were instrumental in helping us make our Bricktown loop times when we run just the B loop. You'll also notice 5 intersections shown in kind of the peach color. 4 of them are along Robinson there, and then you'll see 1 on 4th. Those 5 are the intersections that we are currently adding the traffic signal prioritization to now, and that we anticipate will positively improve our route time, again, by as early as basically February the 2nd, February the 3rd. And then you'll see we have what I would just consider to be the white dots on the map. These are other traffic signals that, again, as an operator, we believe could benefit from traffic signal priority. And once we have the data in and we've reviewed and determined how much time we've been able to save with these first 5, we will immediately go into our recommendation on the next set of signals that we believe should be prioritized. That could be an additional 5. We might come back and say, you know, we need to go ahead and do an additional 10 at this time. But right now, we want to do these 5, understand what the data is, how it improves our route time, so that we can make an informed decision on our next request or recommendation.
So how many signal prioritizations did you do before opening, and then you're adding the 5?
Yep, we actually have 5 that we've already done, 4 in Bricktown, and then 1 there, the blue dot at 4th and Broadway.
And then the 5 more.
And then we're going to do 5 more. And then that'll leave us roughly, 15 that we could still look at doing. And it may very well be our recommendation as an operator to say, yeah, we need to do, the remaining 15. We need all signals prioritized in order to make our route time. But again, we're just approaching it incrementally. And when I say incrementally, we expect it to go very quickly. To give you a sense of the timing on just these 5, Public Works basically issued a work order on the 16th of January. As you heard, they're being installed this week, and we'll have the results. We'll know what the impact of those signals are by February 10th. So this isn't something that we anticipate taking a long time at all. The other advantage that the traffic signal priority brings to us is it keeps the cars moving. And that is important to the estimated arrival time information that we're providing to our customers. So I want to take an opportunity to give a big thanks to U.S. Fleet Tracking, who designed basically a custom system for the OKC Streetcar in order to predict those arrival times. But again, it works the best and it's the most accurate when the vehicles are moving. When the vehicle is stopped at a stoplight, when the vehicle is stopped for utility work, or somebody obstructing the track because they didn't park correctly, then that's when the arrival times are going to basically stall out and not be accurate. And then you'll notice once the vehicle starts moving again, they'll update accordingly. So with the arrival times, I wanted to, if I could, take a minute to just explain a little bit more about how that technology works and how we approached it as an operator. One of the things we've known, looking at systems that have opened across the country, one of the most challenging items that those systems have had is accurate arrival time information. And again, it goes back to the nature of the streetcar and how it shares the streets with all the other pedestrians, cyclists, and traffic. And so what happens is a lot of people will compare these estimated arrival times for a streetcar to say maybe an estimated arrival time they saw when they were riding the WMATA system, or MARTA in Atlanta, or maybe the BART system in San Francisco. And I just would point out that you cannot compare our estimated arrival times to what you see in those systems, because those systems all operate on a dedicated right-of-way, right? I mean, it's just the train that has access to that right-of-way. They don't have any of the, obstructions that we occasionally have. So again, it is an estimated arrival time that you'll see at those locations. And then the last thing I'll mention is in an effort to continue to enhance the customer experience, one of the things we have just recently released after about 3 weeks of beta testing is links on the OKC Streetcar website. If you'll go to the ride guide, click on estimated arrival times, any customer of the Oklahoma City Streetcar system can actually select the link for the stop where they plan to catch the streetcar at, and they can receive the same real-time arrival information that is displayed at the pylons on their phone. And that is, in my mind, a tremendous enhancement to the ability for customers to plan their trip. I used it just last Friday evening, dining at a restaurant in Automobile Alley, pulled my phone out, checked, waited at the table an extra 5 minutes, and then I proceeded to walk to the Automobile Alley stop and catch the streetcar. It was very handy, so I recommend everyone become familiar with that. So on the next slide here, we'll talk a little bit about fares. And to Councilman Greiner's point, this is another milestone for us in Oklahoma City Streetcar. Streetcar fares do begin this Saturday, and just as a reminder, it's $1 per boarding, valid for 1 hour. We have a $3 day pass, a $32 monthly pass, and a $384 annual pass. And there are different ways to pay, of course. You'll notice that there's a ticket kiosk at each one of the platforms. So if a person simply wants to use cash, credit card, or coins, they can interact with that ticket kiosk. And from that ticket kiosk, a customer can purchase a day pass or a single trip pass. The other thing that we are actually encouraging our customers to use really is the mobile ticketing option through the Transit Token app. Through the mobile ticketing option, a customer can purchase all passes, including bus passes, annual passes, monthly passes, and it's just a much more convenient way to purchase your fare, particularly in the middle of the winter. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd much rather, be in the restaurant, be in an office, whatever, be able to pull out my phone, go ahead and take care of my fare, rather than interacting with the ticket kiosk. The other thing is the mobile app comes in very handy if you're riding the streetcar after a large event, right? We'd recommend everyone take care of their fare on their mobile device rather than taking the chance of having to stand in line to use a ticket kiosk. So the instructions for the ticket kiosk are, we believe, pretty self-explanatory. You simply follow the instructions on the screen. With that said, we do have some videos that are accessible on our website that provide further instruction. And then the other thing I want to mention is that with rolling out the fares, we do have an outreach plan. Again, it's a milestone for our system. And here's an example of just a social media post that we're going to be using to get the word out about paying for the fare. But in terms of outreach, what we're doing is we're going to have volunteers out Saturday, much like we did during the opening weekend. We'll have some volunteers out at different platforms. They'll be able to answer questions and help people pay fare. We've also began another round of what we call track meets, and that's where our staff goes out to various platforms in different districts. We invite people to come to that platform. Again, we can show we're showing them how to use the mobile app. We're showing them how to use the ticket kiosk. We had one last Friday here, I believe, at the library stop. We had one yesterday in Bricktown. So our plan is ahead of the fairs, we're getting out, doing the track meets, inviting the public, anyone that's interested, to be able to learn how to pay the fare. And then the weekend of Saturday, we will have volunteers at some of the platforms for about a 6-hour period during the middle of the day, again, to help people understand how to interact and how to pay the fare. And the other thing I'll just say is that we're going to be very customer focused. We know there's a learning curve. And so if by chance someone were to forget to pay their fare, or maybe they forgot to take their ticket out of the ticket kiosk, what will happen is we will simply ask them what their destination is and ask them to pay their fare when they alight from the streetcar. So again, we're going to be very sensitive and very customer focused as we begin educating our riders and our customers. All right, so we've described public outreach. The other thing I do want to mention, again, to help the transition be as smooth as possible and encourage the use of the mobile device, we are having a sale on passes through the month of February. So here's another social media piece that we'll be using to get the word out. But if you want to buy a pass, I encourage you to do it in February, where you can get it for half price, and that does go for all our passes, whether it be a day pass or an annual pass. And the half-price deal is good for one use per phone on the mobile ticketing app.
And the passes are only, you can only use them on the streetcar, you can't use it with the bus system.
Yeah, no, actually, thank you for asking that. The half-price pass will actually, we're extending that to streetcar and to bus.
Okay.
And if you decided to buy a universal pass, then you could use it for both bus and streetcar.
But you have to have two passes to use both. The one doesn't work for both? One
No,
doesn't
a universal pass will work for bus and streetcar.
Okay, so there is that option.
Right. And then I think...
Jason, that half
Yes.
off deal, that's applicable to a month pass or an annual pass as well?
Yes, all the passes.
So you could save not just 50 cents, but you could save $150.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, if you're thinking about buying a pass, this would be especially an annual pass, this would be the time to do it. All right, and then finishing up, just a quick couple of comments about our Love the Loops campaign. This is our outreach effort to the businesses that have stood by the project throughout the last few years, and it's really our opportunity as an operator to support the businesses, but also become a good neighbor. And so there's a couple of programs I wanted to make sure you're aware of. You may have heard of them, but when a business along the route signs up to be a Love the Loops partner, they are eligible to participate in our Shop and Win and our Rider Rewards program. So we've had, so our Shop and Win program works like this, real quick. Basically, if a customer of the Oklahoma City Streetcar purchases goods and services from a business along the route, they scan the receipt, they send it to us, fill out a little bit of personal information so we can contact them. We have a random drawing, and that winner then is awarded a $250 gift certificate from whatever business they select along the route, and we've done 9 of those. The other program we have going on that we're just now starting is the Rider Rewards program. And we have these little cards or coupons that we pass out. And again, it's just a random selection of customers that are riding the streetcar, randomly chosen, and they're eligible for a $25 gift certificate to any business along the route. In addition to that, we're partnering with businesses. Again, we can't do everyone, but through random selection, we're partnering with businesses to do a quick video highlighting their business that we'll share on our social media. We'll also do some photography. We're fortunate in that we have some pretty good photographers on staff, and we'll share that photography and those images with that small business so that they too can leverage that to, promote their business. So again, just an opportunity to partner through the Love the Loops campaign and encourage all the businesses along the streetcar route to participate in that. So with that, that's our first Oklahoma City Streetcar operations update, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
What is the age limit on the passes?
The age limit.
Well, not the age limit,
So-
but newborn to...
Oh, yeah, to 6. Yeah, if you're 6 years of age or older, then you'll need to purchase.
5 and under are free then, correct?
That's right.
Thank you.
So the app, I take it, allows you as an adult to buy multiple passes in one purchase?
Yep.
I have two thoughts. One is I hope you continue to equilibrate service between the streetcar and the bus. Everything that you're describing here, these are great amenities, great ideas. They would all apply to the bus. And it is so sad to me what we have done to bus riders over the years and decades. The idea, to me, the starting Sunday bus service is not a cause for celebration. It's the ending of a transgression. It is shameful what we've done. It's one of the most sadistic things that I've been a part of, that 23% of the population is living underneath the poverty line. And we thought it was okay not to have Sunday bus service, not to have evening bus service. It was 32 degrees out this morning, and people are sitting on bus benches with no overhead covering still after all these years, right? Just treat public transit riders the same. So the things that are I get on social media, OKC Talk, and be like, oh my gosh, I had to wait 20 minutes for the streetcar in the cold. Well, try 45 minutes with nothing over you for years when you have no choice. It's shameful what we've done. It's sadistic, what we've done. And so just equilibrate the level of service between our different modes of public transit. The second thing is I'm still not convinced that people understand what this thing's principal purpose is. And we're getting into MAPS 4 and people are talking, well, let's extend the streetcar. Before we extend the streetcar, let's make sure that we understand how it operates, how much it's going to cost, what its purpose is. Nationally, the primary purpose of this entity is not a public transit tool. It is a real estate development tool, right? So when we're talking about expanding the streetcar, realize that in places like Portland, they'll take it to places where there is nothing in that area. And then they make deals with real estate developers. If you have Kathy O'Connor that says, hey, I've got this massive development, and if you bring the streetcar there, we can get something done that wouldn't otherwise happen, like have a big affordable housing component like they've done in Portland when they bring the streetcar there. That's one thing. But then just say, well, we're just going to extend the streetcar with no plan of how it's going to cause real estate development. That's not the purpose. For a fraction of the cost, you could have bought electric buses for $600,000 a pop and run them with 5-minute frequencies. Right? If the purpose is, and signal prioritization at every stop, if the purpose is to move people in a loop as fast as you can, just get electric buses with signal prioritization. And a streetcar is about real estate development. And I just hope that, there was only Meg and maybe David and Jeff Bezick, maybe. In 2011, when I first got on the council, we had like this MAPS meeting, and we were trying to decide like which project was going to go first, and Mike Mize made a presentation, and it was like, well, we should prioritize those that cause economic development. And I swear, the slide, it was like, the streetcar will result in $17,000 of economic development. Do you remember that, Joe? Or let's say it was 107. It was just such a ridiculous number that it drove home that when we built this thing, we didn't understand what other cities were principally using it for, and that it's an economic development tool. Specifically, it's a real estate economic development tool. And there's no understanding of that. That slide was incredible. And so now we have Roy Williams saying we've got $1 billion of development. So we went from $17,000 to $1 billion in 8 years. I mean, it's just incredible to me. So, but if you are going to make the decision to spend $130 million, when you could have spent a fraction. But if you're going to make that kind of investment, why in the world wouldn't you do signal prioritization and get the whole thing and get the frequencies as fast as you can? I mean, you spent all this money, right? And now you're going to go halfway on level of service? I mean, why not get as close to 40 minutes as you can, as you were saying? I mean, I appreciate that you want to do it incrementally, but I'm not understanding why, if you've made this massive investment, why you're not trying to increase frequency as fast as you logistically can.
And I do think that is the goal, that working with the consultants and with the engineers that we have and with the operators is to identify the areas that are most critical now so that we can move towards that 40-minute frequency, because we've got to do two things downtown. We've got to move traffic downtown as well as a streetcar, and so it's trying to balance that to make sure we're maximizing this. And we don't want to do the prioritization on signals that possibly don't need that, aren't creating the same kind of interruption. So it really is just trying to be strategic about the way we're approaching it and making sure that we're moving forward on trying to get this as efficient as possible.
Right, and I guess, Craig, that's my frustration is like we got to balance car commutes with, well, that decision should have been made before we decided to spend $130 million on a streetcar. I mean, that decision should have been made before it was put on the MAPS ballot. But once you said, okay, we're going to spend $130 million, now you can't say like, well, we have to balance the needs of the cars.
Well, it's looking at traffic flow downtown entirely, and that could be a bus, that could be a car, that could be the streetcar, and it's working to maximize the streetcar to get it to where we are as efficient as we can be in reaching those targets, but still at the same time considering all other flows of traffic that we have downtown. So it's keeping all of that into consideration. So it's not ignoring that priority, it's just trying to move towards it strategically so we make sure that we're trying to maximize those areas where we can.
Yeah, I think that discussion should have been done a long time ago before we decided that this is what we were committing to. But I think that if you know, why are we talking about signal priorities? I mean, you want to do it incrementally? Let's talk about signal prioritization for the buses. I mean, there's no reason why. I mean, a higher priority to me would be increasing the frequency for buses because people are waiting longer, right?
Yeah.
People are waiting 30, 45 minutes out in the freezing weather. So if there was a group that you wanted to prioritize signal prioritization for, why aren't we doing this concurrently with the buses?
Yeah, so, and Councilman, you would obviously have no reason to know this, not serving on the COTPA board, but to your point, and I appreciate your comments about the sensitivity and the comparison streetcar bus, and whether we think, Sunday should have been celebrated or not. To us, we did think it was a huge milestone. The riders, the customers that I talked to were very grateful for the Sunday service, and so we plan to do as much of the same kinds of things we can on the bus side as we are with streetcar. So, but one of the big things is we're actually sending a resolution to the COPPA Board of Trustees on Friday where we're applying for some STBG UZA funds for signal prioritization for the bus system. And that's about $1 million grant that we're asking for to try to improve the travel time for the buses too. So the streetcar, we have learned, we can pick up some time and we can integrate it into our signal system. And so why not try to leverage, these federal funds to do it on a grant, not a bigger scale, but there'll be more opportunities on the bus side through the grant. So we are looking for signal priority there. And two, even with something as simple as the rider rewards program that we're doing for streetcar, we're doing a lot of that for our celebration of Sunday bus service. We'll be out on different routes over the next 7 weeks. Again, trying to recognize our bus customers with some giveaways and that kind of thing too. The token transit app that we're promoting for the streetcar has actually been available to our bus customers since I believe last September. So again, just sharing that with you to let you know, we still have a long way to go and we absolutely need more covered shelters and more frequency. And there's a lot we need to do with our bus system, but we are, at least as staff and with the COPPA Board of Trustees, really trying to balance that. We're definitely sensitive to balancing that.
So 23rd Street's your busiest bus line. So, have you looked logistically at signal prioritization on 23rd?
Yeah, we actually have. We've had some discussions with Public Works, and again, it comes. We believe 23rd Street should be one of the priority areas when we go to putting in signal priority for buses.
Okay.
We've got to work through that with Public Works and determine which intersections we can do that won't just bring all the side streaks to gridlock too. But I'm confident there's a balance there. Eric, or I should say, Public Works Director Eric Winger, and myself, we've had those discussions.
Okay, good.
And we know we've got to figure out a solution to that, and how can we make both work?
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments for Jason? Well, great work. 120,000 riders. I like to focus on the big picture, and obviously there's ways to improve the streetcar operations, but, I can tell you're working on it every day, and obviously the big takeaways for me today are the Sunday service and the 5 more signal prioritizations, so thank you.
Thank you.
David, did they sign up to speak, or?
No.
They did?
They did not.
Oh, they did not. Could we just, there's been so much from the subcommittee. Do you think we could just hear from Jeff on his thoughts on signal prioritization?
Only if he wants to. I don't. we don't usually force people in the audience to speak.
I promise to be kind and quick. First of all, I'd just like to thank City Manager Freeman for taking initiative in listening to the subcommittee and expediting the first 5 signals to be prioritized. The subcommittee unanimously supported a motion to do all 21 in our subcommittee meeting this past month. It was denied by the Oversight Board last week in a 4-3 vote. There were 2 people absent that I believe would have supported it. And the subcommittee's position is that we've been listening to the public, and Councilman Griner in the past has made comments about competition and free market. And I think that, 10 years ago this project was started, we did not foresee Uber. We did not foresee electric scooters. And the system, the numbers that were shown, I think really do demonstrate that you're seeing a high use on the weekends, but that means that it's not working for everyone. And part of it has to do with reliability. So we know we've got a reliability problem. The subcommittee wants to support Eric Winger in essentially paying for the equipment so that it isn't a burden that Public Works has to endure from their budget, because we believe this is a MAP's budgetary problem. But, it's really on Eric, David Todd, and Jason working together to fix this issue. Just two other comments. There are other cities, as Councilman Shadid alluded to, that use the streetcar as an economic development tool rather than just as a form of public transit. Kansas City's been very successful with a free fare program. It's my understanding that Milwaukee just launched a free fare, and they look at it as a way to generate sales tax revenue for their city by increasing mobility where the density is at its greatest. I would argue that 10 years ago, when we conceived of this plan, we thought the RTA would be further along, and we would have commuter rail dumping people into downtown without an automobile, and then they needing a way to get around. So any discussion about extensions should be very thoughtfully considered in terms of moving people, high density, the most success we can get out of it, and also buses. And buses were discussed 10 years ago, and we had initiatives for major bus investments, and they were not appropriated through MAPS 3. One other comment is that users are saying they want a real-time app. So going back to some of Councilman Griner's comments in the past about the free market, if it is going to be competitive, real-time arrival information at the stops has to be very accurate, and signal priority will improve that. But also understanding where the streetcars are at any given time on the overall system, being able to look at an app and say, oh, there it is, and it would tremendously help, I think, with your daytime user ridership, because it would improve reliability and people's trust in the system. So we're committed to funding whatever needs to be done to tweak the system. The former city manager was not a big advocate for signal priority, and I think it's very encouraging today that we are having much more proactive, progressive, positive conversations about the bus system. Little known fact, because of the streetcar project, we have spent money updating the software in the city's main server. So the upgrades to the city's main server will actually allow the bus prioritization to happen much more easily, and that has come out of the streetcar project. So a lot of great work, a lot of great progress, a lot of learning. I mean, this is a community that hasn't had rail in 60, 70 years, but we're coming to a close on the map side of things, and we just want to make sure that we leave it in the most successful place it can be. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to add that, really moving forward on the signal prioritization was a combination of Jason and his team and the operator, along with David and Eric and their teams. All of them, they came together with this solution. I had nothing to do with it. I got to be along for the ride and say, man, this is a great idea. Let's move it forward. So they really are the ones that deserve the credit for that. And what we're going to do going forward, too.
Yeah, and 5 is a good start. We think that $450,000 for the 21 overall is a very nominal cost to the cost of the overall system. And so the subcommittee, we have our position. It's unanimous after hours of deliberation that this would be essentially an insurance policy to make it as successful from an infrastructure perspective as possible. regarding the traffic flows and other movements and other considerations, the absence of a policy saying our city values a high occupancy vehicle that's carrying 100 people over an automobile that may be carrying one is, I think, a debate that you should consider. The Traffic Commission, and I went and spoke to them at length, almost seemed unanimous in their support of such a blanket policy, but staff encouraged me to tap on the brakes because obviously that would have major infrastructure implications and costs unforeseen. But these are discussions that need to be had if we're going to improve the quality of people's interaction with public transit.
Jeff, can I just clarify one thing? We did do 5 signals at the beginning, and then we've added 5 more, so there are 10 signals that will be prioritized.
Is it three were at the first Opticom deployment? Was it
I thought
3?
there were 4 in Bricktown and 1 at 4th and Robinson.
Four,
So that,
and then
4 in Bricktown and 1
and then
at...
5. So
No,
we're
so now there are
actually
10.
9.
No, you said 5 earlier.
Yeah, we got,
Right.
So we're at 10 out of how many missing? Okay, so we still have 21 potential red lights.
I'm sorry, I
And-
thought you said earlier we would have about 15 after what? That could be done.
15 more that could
All
be
agree
done.
now?
So, so everyone's clear. And, you know, the problem isn't necessarily just the red lights. I mean, you have people that, if it's a large group and they're boarding the train at a platform, they can delay it from departing. The same with cars parking across the white line. That probably happens at least once a day. So the real issue is when you add the red lights to the equation, you create unreliability. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And one last comment, just, it was a tangent maybe, but it's worth addressing. You know, Councilman Shadid, I really view MAPS4 as an opportunity to look at bus shelters and look at bus service and bus rapid transit service, and I certainly encourage people to champion those projects as in the MAPS4 discussion. So.